Well, good morning, everyone. Scott Henderson, shooter. Well, for some reason yesterday, I did not get a recording from our meeting, so I'm going to do a quick one here for everybody who was unable to meet that. Of course, at the end of our presentation, please do review our disclosure. The good thing about this is I get to add what I forgot to put in the video because there's always something I miss. All right, the dollar here. Right now, this is a bearish equities. Right now, I'm surprised where really, even though we pulled back just a little bit with washes and the FOMC yesterday, I think we start pushing 102 on the dollar and we could have a decent drawdown. So that's a little concerning from that perspective, because it's hard to enter positions where we are right now near all-time highs. It just is very challenging. And I don't know that that's going to change. So we have to be very selective in what we're going into. And let me sort of walk through that a little bit. This is going to be my cue into the SPY. Now, structurally, I think we have this ABC is where we are. I don't see that changing. I mean, it could broaden. I mean, we could break out and we could be done here. That's been the MO of this market since late 2020. So I don't, if we look at all of our pumps, we've constantly brought them out until we get a nice flush and then we regroup and come back. Nice flush. So the question is this just an ABC up to our high, or is it an impulse? Because it could be an ABC here, because that does happen often in a head and shoulders. And this would be our left shoulder, this would be our head, this would be a right shoulder, and then we'll come back down here. However, structurally, when I come out and I look at a monthly chart here on the SPY, as far as the monthly, and I look at my larger wave structure, clearly we have an impulse wave. This is wave one, wave two, wave three, wave four, wave five. And then we have a correct. So this is wave one, this is wave two, this is wave three, this is wave four. And the question is five shallow, or does it become the longest wave and it extend? Based on how impulsive this look is to me, I'm viewing this as an entire impulse where, we're going to get parabolic in the view. That's just the way I see it. So until it changes my mind, it doesn't even start to, really, we can't even get bearish till we're below 698.14. That's 50 points away. I just don't see that happening in the immediate future. All right, let's look at the NASDAQ. A little broader, a little more breadth, a little more volatility, more wick. I mean, we whipped on the bottom with a lot of indecisiveness here, right? But I think this ABC structure is here. However, I'm going to say this. Right now, as I'm looking at the MAG 7, on the note, we have some nice moves today. I mean, Amazon moved and Nvidia moved. I mean, well, Tesla still dumped and Microsoft still dumped. So, my bias is still up here at this 875. I see no reason why that should change. We're not even testing trend support down here. If we look at our two lower levels, I mean, right now it's risk on. That's exactly where we are. All right. With that, let me jump to the MAG 7. I want to go through these today. Right now, I see Tesla lower. I was very disappointed it didn't get a bid with SpaceX because it sort of screwed up my whole thesis with it. However, let's talk about Tesla for a second and SpaceX. Elon has never been the hyperboil kind of guy in my mind. He's always been like, okay, here's my plan. Here's what I'm building. Here's what I need to build it to achieve this. And I'm looking for mass scale. And there was a Twitter post that I read yesterday or the day before about how XAI is deploying compute faster than any other company. Now think about that for a second, okay? Faster than anyone else. The guy with the biggest factories, the guy who's capable of building the biggest factories, has the fastest build to compute. And that's probably why we see $80 billion in orders in space. Wait a second. So what are we looking at? Maybe 1 to 2 megawatts in the next 12 months from SpaceX? Okay. What that's telling us is this pipeline on the ground, it's not condensing. It's not consolidating down to 8. It's going to be December 1st, 2026. And we go from 100 gigawatts to 300 gigawatts. What it's telling us is that we have some overhead resistance in the build, because otherwise we wouldn't see $80 billion going into SpaceX contracts. Now, Elon has said that he wants to merge the company. So I actually, right now, I have absolutely no reason to doubt him. And obviously, he's been extremely savvy in raising capital for these behemoth projects. So he's going to build this chip factory. We know he's going to build it, because he probably wouldn't have said anything unless he knew for sure he could build it. So how much of the resources, the capital raise, the largest capital raise in U.S. history, is going to flow back Tesla in some ways? And when do they become one company? My bet is sooner than later. So I have a hard time shorting it. I really want a long position in it. However, I've just not found the reason why I want to put the risk on the table there. I mean, we break back above that 420 level, ironically, huh? 420. Have you heard that before? Oh, and ironically, I think he proved his case. Watch it. He takes Tesla private at 420. That would just absolutely be hilarious. Love the guy though. I mean, a little bit of a quirk to some degree, but we all are. All right, so I think they merge sooner than later. I think, as a matter of fact, I would not expect. Now, the challenging part here though is I think we see a huge dip in Tesla and we see a dip in SpaceX at the same time. And how they do that stock split, once that lands there and that dust settles, that's where I think we really want to get our large position. That's just my mindset. So that was part of the reasons I wanted to go through the Mag 7. But my point is I wanted to show where strength and weakness. Right now, Nvidia is holding relative strength. This is where the bulls get back in control. Clearly, we have the flow going into it. Just there are so limited names. I mean, I think we had 10 on the list this morning. And I still can't see how the he's connected to everything in AI. So if AI is going 3x, what's NVIDIA going to do? It's going to go 3x. It's just insane for us to think about that here. So we're talking a $200 stock that's going to be a $600 stock in 5 years. All right. So how can we not have a position in that? So that's something we need to work on and look at. But, as far as the chart itself, it's not anything other than relative strength in a market where I think we see a little weakness first. So I would like a decent pullback, and then I get interested in the Mag 7 again, and that's why I'm going through this. Apple is bullish here. Nice wick off. Held the shelf. Didn't test the body of the candles, so it didn't get down to 280. Strength, right? Wick off. Inside bar. Right? So indicates that we're having a change. However, this still could be an ABC. You always have to be mindful of what the chart pattern is because usually it's telling you the story that we don't see. So ABC would be something like this. So obviously I get real interested here, specifically if this candle holds at 270 and the structure weakens substantially. But I think they're coming out with something with layout. My daughter works for a contractor for Apple, so I have some inside information there that I probably shouldn't share, but hey, it's what it is. So it's like, as long as this shelf doesn't break at 256, there's no reason this structure isn't going to keep building out up towards the 384. It's just, when do we want to acquire it? So I'm interested at the shelf trying a piece there. I will probably even do leap on Apple because I want to be far out in time. I don't necessarily want to focus on gamma versus time, at least in this market. All right, Meta had a lot of volatility. Look at these wicks that really came out last couple of days. I still think it comes back and tests the shelf, so I get interested around 490. Amazon, I think it's heading lower. I think we talked about this last week around 248. We got down to about 237, about $10 lower. I think we continue. I think this is a impulse down. So, I think our high is in. I could be wrong because it's a good place, good shelf right there. That's where we want to hold. Right now it's holding. Wicks are holding. Bodies didn't close below it. So we won't have confirmation of that continued breakdown until a body that closes below that 237.68. Looking at Microsoft, I see a head and shoulders here. This is our weak sister in the Mag 7, and it's disappointing. However, that probably means they're going to come out and figure out how to really monetize AI, and then it's going to completely flip in the other direction because he's always been creative in creating products that are behemoth in generating income. For example, Microsoft Office going from an annual license to a reoccurring monthly charge, right? So he eliminated the people who bought the old version of Office, who bought it every 5 to 7 years, and he's now turned them to a constant paying customer every single month. So he has steady Eddie money. And I see monetization of AI hitting Microsoft, but I can't tell you when. But we want to follow this because it's going to tell us the overall strength of the market. Microsoft gets strong, that is going to be a tell that the market gets stronger. And this morning, we're only down just a little bit from yesterday. So, my thought is that we're stabilizing here at price. And notice right where we're at this shelf. And we wick past the shelf, 377.07. So the structure doesn't really break down for me until we get below 345. At that point, the head and shoulders is totally in play. All right, looking at Google. If I had green candles, I'd probably open a starter position here. However, we didn't test the body, so 336. So right now it's done nothing wrong. However, I'm kind of neutral right now with the entire Mag 7. However, what I'm saying is they're getting interested, and I want to have a game plan of how I want to trade them. So this is how my mind works. I start looking at them, then I start looking at why it's going to move, then I start analyzing why it's going to move, what should be the catalyst, where do I want to own it, where am I right, where am I wrong? That sort of is how my mind works. So, but I still like Google to the upside. It has substantial upside to here if it fully monetizes AI. I mean, way the heck. Even though realistically, 600 is fine. That's probably the best target for us to look at. This probably is a little hyperboil. But if AI goes 3x, this is where Google's going. So we want to keep that in mind. All right, looking at TLT. Now, I should have put a position on it yesterday, and I got so sidetracked scalping FOMC, I forgot to put anything in there. Horrible. I should have bought it at my 80. Oh, all right. So our play $90 January leak, probably are a little expensive. You could go out to 95s or even 100. Probably before the end of the day, I'll put a couple contracts on just to see how that works and follows through. Looking at semis, this is just a rocket ship. I don't think this is our high. I think this is our minimum high, and I think I'm conservative, 892 on SMH. All right, let's look at Bitcoin. I think it's heading lower. We're still holding our shelf at 60,000. We've wicked to it. This is a perfect image of a stop run, right? The only thing is we confirmed on this low. So in that sense, equality for me is going to be a little bit lower. So maybe back down to this 40,000. Realize there's just a vacuum below 57,500. Once that flushes, I don't think it slows down at 50, right? I think it continues because all you got are these wick, right? So I think this is the first support that we really find is down around 49, right at 50,000. Then we decide if we're going to hold there or not. That's sort of my thought. Okay, let's switch over to T1 Energy. Now, this is a total AI infrastructure play we entered yesterday. I'm a little upside down in those. I did August, $10, really because it's sort of a toe in the water, because I wanted to do October's, and then at the end of the day, I decided not to do those. So at this point, that's the position. Right now, I like it for the upside because I think it's going to continue to head higher with AI. And that was a beautiful wick off right there. And the body of the candle closed right at the shelf. Look how perfect that is. Those are all strength looks for me. First trade is to 1160 is my thought. Then on that pullback, my idea is to rotate into $15 calls in October. Now, GEV absolutely is just killing it off of those lows. Perfect, near perfect entry. Could have been better on price, but hey, I think I entered right here on the body of this candle right about there on my first order. So, we're looking at a push, and I'm using these fibs here. Hold on, I got to change my chart template because I've got the wrong one up. Help if I had the right one. Yep. Hello. Okay, so now GEV, again, is that core build out of natural gas as far as the build. Now, as far as our targets, right now, I've built what I'm using, the caveat is I use every kind of stop and match. It's sort of a whim at the moment. Reason is because a stop's a stop. It has one purpose. When you're wrong, it gets you the hell out so you don't lose money. That's what it's there for. So I constantly switch to different things, confirming trend support, the EMA strategy, and this is an average true range. And really what this has come from is this is a way to automate my charts where it just pops up and I can print this chart and provide it to you with some set methodology that gives you visually what you need to see. Like my risk is 755. My first target is 1172. My second target is 1268. Second target is 1450 based on the average true range. So, it's pretty simple. Bacon and eggs kind of thing. So, GEV, I think we're heading up towards our 5 here. $1,500 from where we are. So I don't plan on selling it. This is one of my names that I like for significant upside on the AI bailout because when we go from 100 megawatts to 300 gigawatts, how big is the power supply going to be and who's going to be building it? And the quagmire that we have in power is the timeline. Solar is 6 months out once permitting's done. I mean, it's actually pretty quick for solar, but solar doesn't have the capacity to build what we need quickly. And, one of those generators from GE, I mean, they're about, I ever seen a giant dump truck at the mining facility? They're bigger than those things. I mean, literally, they ship it in pieces and they have to assemble it. It takes 3 months to build it. However, they are only building, I think it's 80 units a year. So it's a huge manufacturing facility. Japan just jumped in with 80 billion to help build more products. So I think GE has to, in recent capacity. Now realize GE isn't going to build anything, new capacity, unless somebody pays for it, right? So Japan jumping in with 80 billion. What is the US going to jump in with? That's the thing here. I think that's going to be the huge push, because I think they have to double their capacity for AI to materialize. And I think at some point, somebody in Washington is going to recognize that. And that's going to be the game plan. And I'm trying to get ahead of it. And that's the mindset. All right, Rocket Labs, just off of this wick, that setup right there closes below that 99.58, then I'm going to cut and run. Oracle, we're just sitting here, hasn't taken out the stop yet at 176. Ironically, I'm still not underwater on that because I sold 200 cash secured puts. So if it gets put to me, great. And I'll be thinking about another lot at 169 and another lot around 155. Because I do want to build out a position after this kind of a drawdown. And the reason being is I think the same scenario with GE. I don't think the orders have hit Oracle. And I think Oracle is a big player. Cipher Mining just converted or started AI motherboards in their facilities. And I think you're going to have other miners do that. And Oracle is going to be a big player in that. All right, Hive is my AI kind of leap thing. Right now it's working, assuming this is peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2, we're going to get a peaking drive 3, somewhere around here, around $7, which is right where my calls are in January. So right now, Zscaler is rejecting higher prices. All right, so again, questionable. It breaks below here. I have no choice but saying, hey, okay, I was wrong. It was a crappy entry. At 120.34, I'm probably going to cut and run. All right, that's just sort of my thought. I just need to get back to the basics there. When it doesn't work, get out, get into something that is working and focus on those. All right, SEI is working. Again, the thesis is Elon Musk buys this thing. Okay, realize they are going to handle the power build out. 60% of their business is Tesla. In this new mining factory and these gigawatts on the ground, okay, who's going to be a main player for XAI and this new chip factory? SEI. That's why I think he buys it. That's my 2 cents. I'm sticking to it. All right. IBKR, totally based on 2 things. One, the pattern day trader rule has been removed by the SEC. Second factor is the prediction markets that they've gone into. So they have 2 brand new revenue streams they did not have before. On top of that, crypto's whammy. So where are all the crypto traders going? They're going to go to day trade, right? So next quarter, I expect this to be up closer to 1618, around 124. So I'm being very conservative in this look. I think once those numbers come in, we'll know. All right, let's look at some requests. All right, American Semiconductor, nice wick here. We're putting in a green candle. It's actually a good spot to jump on board, until the structure breaks below this $36. The only thing I don't like is this bearish look to this ABC structure, right? Right now it's holding up well, though. It's holding up well. However, it gets below the body of this candle. If you trade it long, $40, I'd trade. That's just my 2 cents. Because once weakness is coming into this market, profits just are freaking evaporating. So that's something we want to keep in mind. All right, Spiral Global. The line in the sand for me is 1631. Wick below it. My bias is that we put down 1459, and I like this shelf right here at 1435 because I think that holds. That's just it's messy. Anytime you don't have clear defined shelves, you have these huge wicks, back test, right? If you go from here to here, what is that? 78.6? Just going to measure it for shoots and giggles, see how good my eye is, even though I probably have horrible eyes. So, it right down the 70 fib inside that golden box, tightening that up. So, it was textbook, but it does like these reversions to the mean. So, we got this breakout, gave it all back. Right? So could we have this breakout and give it all back? Sure. And if we come in and we drop the fibs on this, let's just assume that's our whole structure. That was our high, right? Golden box is right there where my bias is. So that lines up with my thinking. So MACD's rolling over. RSI is kind of finding a bottom here. It's building out a flag look on the RSI, though. I will say that. It depends on whether you want to put on risk. That would be my final call. SMCI, again, it's going to come back to the infrastructure. And who builds? Who puts the boxes in that the AI chips run? Who has funding capabilities in-house for all that hardware? So in other words, if Elon went to SMCI and said, hey, I need 1 million cabinets, right? SMCI can say, okay, I'll give it to you 0 interest payments for 2 years. Okay, how much business is that going to get? And a lot of the other cabinet manufacturers don't have that strength in their financing model like Supermicro. It's the thesis around AI. I think it gets back above $80. So Archer Aviation looks to me like we're heading lower. I've got a number down here around 320 for my look. Virtue Financial, I mean, just a behemoth here. Maybe we get a little pullback here about 62. I mean, it's just running. I've got a lot of upside. Maybe we get an ABC. So this would be our 1, this would be our 2, and then we get a 3 up here and the 4. So even my 3 here is very conservative. I think 3618 is totally viable. Hold, that's it. Statalogic, we have broken below this shelf, so we have substantially weakened. However, golden box is still right here. So anywhere in that shelf until proven otherwise. Let me just double check where my anchor there. Yes, I am measuring the whole box. All right, now originally this was the buy box, okay? Once we broke below that shelf, I moved it down, right? So now the buy box is here, even though I had it there when I was looking at that. So I think we find some support right here. Notice where we are. We got a wick here, wick a little bit higher. So the most likely place that it holds is 525. RCAT, nice bullish setup. The buy side is showing totally bullish, no downside likelihood. You got a nice trend line here that's holding. So it depends on where you want to peg it. You want to peg it to the wicks or you want to peg it to the bodies. I'm going to just use the body here as long as this holds. So 862 is probably a decent candidate for a bounce. However, it's showing continued weakness here. MACD is wide open, rolling over. RSI is really showing more of an uptrend than a downtrend. So it's a mixed bag there, whether you want to take a shot here or take a shot back at $9. That's really going to be based on your book, I think. ICHR, Ichor Holdings, just another behemoth. Hold. Suggested stop was here yesterday when I didn't get my recording done. I would now move. We now have a clear second general. We now move our stop up to 9107. The gap, I mean, you could use the wick, but with that euphoria, I'd want to keep that. I don't want to give that if it gives it up, Confirming trend support, I'll just put that there. And for those of you who I really like confirming trend. That's to me, it's simple and you can use a structured process. So when it breaches that line, as far as your anchor. So your 2 labels would be there, 1312 and 9107. Just a beautiful thing right there. Hold. LBTR is trying to find a bottom here. It's actually a 50% back candidate. However, with weakness, I like it better at 697. Lightbridge looks good. I think the trend changes. Nice, consistent wave up. A lot of noise though. And what I mean by noise, I don't like these wicks. Somebody's pumping it and then they're freaking dumping it. You clearly look at these wicks all the way up, right? But what we don't have is wicks to the downside. So what's that telling? That the sellers aren't giving up. Well, that's all these guys. Right. They're sellers now. So till they win. So I think the most likely spot that we hold, and the structure totally weakens for me. It gets below this line, right down here at this point. And realize when I draw these lines, they're there just to say, hey, this is when the structure is expanding and getting more bullish. We know this because we get these candles to the upside. So when does that start winning? And it's stair steps. You got step 1, step 2, step 3. This is step 4, and we reject it, right? So this is step down 1. This is step down 2. Do we get a 3? Well, based on the look of this chart and the fact that RSI is basically a double bottom, however you look at it, just wick below 3642, 3643 below. So this is a confirming low. So always my view is one more lower in price. So in quality, this is 1, this is 2. I'm looking for 3. That's basically my thought. Big Sky. Well, it didn't hold up after SpaceX. I mean, we got a nice run into SpaceX. And I think I called it out back down here around 26. Well, we're about back there. It's a round trip. Unfortunately, it is a round trip candidate. The golden box that I have measured, I'm just making sure I'm in the right place. Yes, I am measuring this entire leg here. So golden box is down here. We are testing this shelf right now. We haven't gone below there. We've wicked to it. Doesn't look done to me. 3 clean generals to the downside. The challenging part is that it looks like an ABC structure and it's pretty aggressive. So if we get shallow and it does this, that's probably the best case, right? If even shallower, then honestly it could become an impulse down, and then it could become a reversion to the mean candidate down here to 730. I'm not interested in holding that here. BABA, I said yesterday it's done. It's already, look at this huge pump since yesterday. Just it's continuing to flow lower. I think we head down here minimum. You can see my impulse leg that I've drawn here. Minimum maybe down to around 80 bucks is my thought. PLTR, I like it, but it just looks weak. These projections, it's in the middle. It's no man's land. They're right here at this shelf. It's nowhere. It's chopped, right? The first place that I get interested is off of this wick. So equality, flushing drive 1, flushing drive 2, so flushing drive 3, because that looks like the case. So the lower side of the box, around 105, 107. That means this structure breaks. And now we'll know it. You'll get a huge wick right here. If it's going to hold right here, you will get a huge wick candle like this here, right here, huge wick, right? That would just be my thought. So you'll have a tell. So if you have an alert, I'd set an alert back above the body of this candle at 129.99, right? And I'd set an alert like right here at 121.95. Either of them trigger, you want to look at or consider an entry. All right, BE, it's continuing to go. I think I've got the head and the shoulders marked, but I don't think that's what this is, right? When I see an alternate dominant pattern that I want to monitor, I'm going to put it on the chart, all right? Just because I want to know that. Doesn't mean that's what I think it's going to do. Just like when I draw an impulse wave, that is the most likely outcome. That doesn't necessarily mean I support that move, all right? But that is the way I interpret the wave, the FOMO, and the fear of loss. And then I have to come back and analyze how I want to enter this position. What you have clean here is you have a clean flag. We're heading up to the upside. We're going up 2618 at 430. Hold. There's no reason to trim. Now, it is breaking the bottom of the structure. I'll need to come out a little more in time. Come back here. This shelf is broken. Right? Our body is long, it looks like we're going to close, but I mean, we can wick back above it today. But so, equality to me is back down around 65. And, that's sort of my thought. And that's what I pretty much have today, folks. However, I want to jump over and do something a little different. Okay, I'm jumping over to my Substack, and I want to go over the chart book just briefly. It's a new edition. I want to make sure you understand how to use it and what is still being back tested as we work through some of the coding. All right, top of this main page, click chart book, and you automatically populate. Now, roughly, we have 162 stocks that are currently uploaded. This is currently the all domain thesis. Then I'll be adding some of the other pieces, like when we have setups outside of that are triggered, they'll be under certain categories. But let me go through how the hierarchy works. First, the chart, all right? All you have to do is click on any image, it pops out, and you get your analysis to the right and the image itself. Click on it again, you get a full view of the screen. Hit escape, you click on the analysis, and it pops out to a full screen as well. All right. Now, one thing you can do from here is you can tab, and it'll be based on the section. So, for example, we're under all, so it will tab every single chart. It'll tab every single chart in that section. So, for example, if we go and we want to look at our actionable, we open up our first chart, right? You click on it, blow it to first image. All you want to do is see the chart. You want to look at what the setups are, tab, next chart in this section, next chart, next chart, next chart, next chart, next chart. I can't tell you how much time it took me to get that right. All right, so when we pop out, the analysis is what I want to talk about mostly here, because I don't want you trading from this yet, because we're still building in the hierarchy and back testing. We have self-awareness built into this, so we do have self-learning built into this, and it's my hopes that it helps me see things I don't see. And it completely recognizes patterns, via mound theory and or Elliott wave, Fibonacci extensions, can look at the history of a chart, how the buyers reacted in prior periods, options included. So it'll see that entire universe as far as what's in the chart. But what I want to point out is what is useful is right now we have tiers. So we have tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3. Now, basically, tier 1 is the best stock with the highest growth rate for the theme grouping, AI network and optical infrastructure, right? So this is a tier 2 stock, AAOI as an example, is part of the theme peers. So all of the stock under that theme will be listed here. And then we've ranked it. Now, we've tweaked this multiple AIs, and that's also part of the self-learning. So we're looking at how we are ranking things, how it's functional working to outcomes, etc., in the self-learning process. So this in itself gives you a quick visual of, hey, I'm looking at buying something in optical electronics. These are the ones that are moving, or that are in this group. Like, for example, Marvel is the leader, right? Credo, A-Lab, and Light were leaders prior. So, that's something we'll see as far as rotation. Now, the sector health, specifically the leadership in this, now this is sector, communication equipment and optical infrastructure, right? That is the sector health that we have it broken down to. Now we have a separate piece for sectors. I'll go through that in a second. Let me finish with a theme grouping. This also I find is very helpful because it's telling us, are we consolidating? Are we correcting? Are we expanding? Because basically there's three modes of a stock. Either it's moving forward in price, it's stalled, or it's losing value. That's really what it comes down. Then the rotation status. Is it risk on, risk off, or is it neutral? And then it's going to break down the categories a little deeper. And then our context scores. Now this is a works in progress, and we're expanding that based on or reducing it based on the self-learning outcome that we have. And that's ongoing. So, next week it might have a different model that we use because we find it has a better outcome. The one thing nice about AI is we can look at, hey, version A, version B, version C, version D, what is going to have the highest risk reward? So obviously that ultimately is the deciding factor. Now, the 1 minute analyst is, we're having some challenges with code. So from this point down, I don't want you to rely on anything that's in the analysis. But this information I find is useful now in its current form, and we'll be building that out. This is just missing pieces on the chart for AI to pick up on what I actually want it to say, all right, when it reviews the chart. Right? And then it's going to go back and look at my review and analysis on individual charts. And then it's predicting what I'm going to say, is being very candid to what it's doing. So it's got the history of everything I've written. So it knows how I talk, how I'm going to respond based on the chart. And we're now comparing that to the images in that self-learning process to come up with a better outcome. That's really the idea here. All right, so now that we go back, let's talk about the categories. And first of all, you can search by ticker. If it's in the map, it'll pick up, right? Second, we have our focus group, which basically combines hold and accumulate, because those are the positions that we should try to keep a position open in if we own them. And then the other positions on what we want to start accumulating shares on any day. That's what focus group is, right? Now, actionable is a chart that favors forward price now. And I'm just going to go to PA, right? We've gotten the wick lower, shelf held. Most likely outcome is going to be to about 1,040. Our max number is 11.6. So we have a setup. We have the back test. We have the wick off. It's supportive. Let me go to AVA. Now we've put in the bottom. We have some confirmation on our low. We have an MACD crossing. Again, is it a prior structural shelf? Now, just quickly, the structure weakens below is a line that I put on there really to teach AI, but it might be helpful to you guys. What I'm basically saying is the way the chart looks currently based on the mound structure and Elliott wave and fibs in the chart. If this line breaks, the bull thesis weakens and it'll stair step just like we stair up. So this is our first step up, second step up, third step down, third step up. Then we step down, this first step down, second step down. So the next outcome would be equality, a third step down maybe to $80 at this break. So we're trying to teach AI that in as far as how it looks at. So, but actionable, the intent is each of these charts, no matter which one it might be, is putting in some kind of divergence or bottoming program, MACD cross, etc., and we're mapping it out. And forgive me if I've missed some of my lines in the sand or my stops on there. I'll have to go back and check those again because I'm noticing I'm missing a few of those. All right, looking at accumulate. Now, these are names that we want to buy on dips, even with the pricing that they're at. ARM, peaking drive 1, peaking drive 2. We're going to put a peaking drive 3. It gives an opportunity back to this line at 334 to buy it. It's a deal. All right, so these are the stocks that we've already put in a pump. This is peaking drive 1. We're going to get peaking drive 2, peaking drive 3. So this is going to break out to all-time highs. We want to try and accumulate a position, right? Now, that is the intent of the labeling, just straight up, right? It's extremely time consuming to put this together. At this point, it's not taking me a tremendous amount of time to maintain this and get the charts up because AI is scoring it based on my input that I'm giving, right? It also is in the self-learning factor. Now, my perception here is these action ratings will be an extraordinary tool for investors and myself. Extraordinary, because that 1 minute look that I want, I look at something, boom, that's what it is. All right. I want to know whether or not I want to buy the stock. Like right now, I'm looking at SoundHound. I get real interested, $5.34, because that looks like equality to the structure, right? However, we break back above the body of these candles back to the upside. Maybe it's done already. So, we want to look at what we can accumulate, make the decision yourself based on what fits into your basket, what you want to own. All right. Now, watch right now is just the fact that Sentinel and HELOP OS is watching the stock for changes every time this chart gets up. So when the circumstances change, it'll change its rating from watch to hold, accumulate, actionable, and then hold basically are stocks that if we own, hold them. That's the idea, right? That's the rating structure that we're trying to go with. Be candid, it may or may not stick because it is very time consuming. If I find it sending the wrong message, because I don't want to send too much information, because it just might not give you actionable ratings because it's still flawed to some degree. So I don't want you relying on the action rating. I want you relying on the chart because those are what we know are tests. Now, there will be stocks that are listed that aren't ranked. Now, I see a chart that's interesting. This is where I'm throwing it in just so Sentinel and the system recognizes. All right. Now, rotation buckets, this is a works in progress. You'll be able to go and find where things are rotating. Basically, the idea is when we see sector rotation, and I say we're going to rotate into metals or minerals, right? You should be able to come up to the sector rotation category and find those names. However, we also have S&P sector. So if you want to look at energy, if we have any stocks in there, and I know there's energy in there, so we'll have to go back and check out materials. There are ones in materials that are there. So you can pull them up not only by our rating expectation. Maybe that's why it didn't pull up. Let me go back to energy, see if, nope, still didn't pull anything up. All right, so this again is a works in progress. We're working on the labeling, making sure it's accurate. And when we see something that's not correct, we're still vetting that. Now, this has the HELOP tier grouping. So this is all tier 1, and it's not connected right now, tier 2, etc. Right? And when that's populated, you'll be able to pull it up by the tiers. And honestly, it's probably just not saved correctly because I believe we did update that. All right, time frame. Now, right now, we only have day, week, and month. Right? At some point, we'll be showing more time frames in there. When we can import charts live from Flow Data, which is where I'm working to get to. I don't know if this happens this quarter. I'll be candid with you. Just because I want to get this running, run 30, 60, 90 days of self-learning and see how much AI can actually improve what I do and get us more accurate target with better risk reward. Once that materializes and I see the return in reward from those trades versus what I do already, then I'll start expanding into other baskets. So now we also are working on a setup grouping, golden pocket, breakout, all right? We're pulling that data in. That will be migrated after I get all of the chart detail and the analysis done. And then you obviously can sort by SP sectors, theme groupings, etc. All right, so the search criteria are a works in progress. And what I'm basically saying is, hey, you can rely on the charts, right? Rely on the top grouping in the analysis, but not the analysis itself. And I will publicly tell you, or I'll launch it at that point and let you know that it's functionally working. But I wanted to share that with you simply because I think it's a fantastic tool. I already love it because now I don't need to go find my chart in TradingView. I can click one specific page, do a search, and all the charts are in one place. So even though I have my alerts and everything set in TradingView, which by the way, we can read the alerts in TradingView and migrate them to an alert system here. And I want a pop-up because I don't like a really noisy trading dashboard. I like a little buy and sell box, so I'm viewing my chart. I personally like. The reason is I find this huge broker dashboard distracting because I'm getting all this news and the other stuff that I don't need that really may not be actionable for what I'm trading for that day. So I want to come down in this process. I want it to be focused. Right now, it's a tool for you to research charts that I'm producing and then chart requests each week that I do once I'm automated. I might not do it before then, only because, but if you want a chart, just request it and I'll post it here. So any new charts for setups will be posted here. Even if I do the article, the chart will be here. So you can go back and look at it. So if you remember, hey, I like Tesla, you can pull up the Tesla chart. And all you gotta do is click on it, pop it out, and you can view the full image. All right. So that's the idea based on that. So that's what I have for today, folks. Great trading. Until next time.